Good evening.
We're actually early tonight, so shocker. I figured the least I can do, the first Q&A after so long is be not just on time, but a couple minutes early. Chris, how are you feeling? He lives.
I live. I'm okay. Been a rough few months.
Make sure to drop your location in here so Rain Man can, spend a good half hour of the Q&A
Hey,
reading them
Brent.
off. What kinetic stand?
Rhode Island. My nephew plays for Rhode Island State University there. Plays football for them.
His last name is hyphenated, though. It's Bartacci Schomburg.
Sean Bartacci, actually.
Sean Bartacci, that's it. He's the kicker.
Jersey. New Hampshire free. Korea DMZ. Thank you for your service. Pittsburgh.
We're going to give it a couple more minutes to let everybody move their way in, and then we're going to kick in because, like I said, I am early. That's shocking.
Yeah, being behind the lines for the last few months has been difficult, not being able to do much there. A lot of family issues going on there as well.
We want our Phillies to stomp the Astros. I will kick you out, Racer. Don't make me have to block and delete you over that. There is no anti-Astros in my Q&A ever. Okay, we're gonna
Norway.
see as soon as I start.
Oh, I'm
As
sorry.
soon as I start, he's like,
I love my international people.
"Where do you see Norway?"
Right there. I'm from Norway.
Philly will win. They will not win. Was it somebody there was like some meme going around I thought was really funny, and it was like "Make America Mad Again" with the Astros winning.
They see Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was just talking to somebody the other day back home in New York about Sprecher root beer. They thought they had a good root beer there in Rochester. I told them they had nothing compared to the Sprecher in Milwaukee.
Okay, guys, it's been a while, so if I flub and mess this up, you'll know why. Um, Welcome to a SAS Q&A. It's been a while. If you have a question tonight, you can drop it into the chat line. I will be trying to stay somewhat in order as best as possible, depending on how many people float in here. We're already at 100 right now, and once it starts getting into 300s, it's going to be a lot. If you'd like to donate tonight, you can do it by using the super chat function, which is clicking the $sign, and your question will be bumped to the top, and you will get a guaranteed response. Our preferred method is DonorBox. That link is on smallarmsolutions.com. That's easy to use. I'll also be plugging it into the chat here that you can click on and use it throughout the Q&A and attach your question to the comment section. I'll get an email. It's the same way. You'll bump to the top. Google takes 30%, and that's insanity. And DonorBox only takes about 3%. So that is our preferred method. But either way, we don't just take paid questions. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we're going to get into all things updates for SAS and get as many questions answered as possible tonight. First up is from Doc on DonorBox. Thank you, Doc. He said, "Great to have you back, Chris and Heather. I'm old school and can't get myself to striker fired for my carry gun. Please change my mind. I really do love my 320, but still carry my aging HK USP.
I was very slow to change as well. My first carry gun was a Beretta 92, and from there I went to a Sig 229, and then I carried a USP for a while. It took me a while to go over to the Glock. Of course, now I'm switching over to Sig P320. But I have to say that one of the biggest selling points for it for me was the fact that the first trigger was the same as the second, third, and last. Um, and that was something that I liked because traditionally a lot of people with double single, you go to pull the double action, you end up pulling high, and then you end up pulling low on your second shot. That was sort of really that was sort of a big selling point for me. Um, for as far as the safety was concerned, it wasn't a big deal because I carried all those guns with safeties off anyways, so I could care less about the not having a manual safety. But once I got good with that, I knew what to expect every time I pulled that gun out. I had this the same trigger. That's really what got me with it. I never was much for the double strike capability. I always tapped in rack, so to use the argument that you have to you have the double strike capability wasn't really relevant to me. I tended to just to go with the with it, and I have not looked back, and that's going back well over 20 years now. I mean, I think it was probably around, I'd say 96 or so, 95, 96 was when I switched over to Glock, and I carried Glock for all those years up until the last couple of years. I just replaced my Glock 42 with the SIG P365, and I'm in the process now of replacing my Glock 45 with a SIG P320 X Compact. Is my new carry gun. So I'm sort of switching out of Glock and into SIG.
Sean on DonorBox, he did not have a question, but thank you so much, Sean. Kirk on DonorBox, thank you, Kirk. He wants to know, did you get my gift, the metal reduced scale M16A1? Monty has one too, sent it to Corey 2 weeks ago. Well, Kirk, if you sent it to the P.O. box recently, I have not been to the P.O. box in at least a couple of weeks. So if it's there, he has not gotten it, but I will get over there this week and pick it up. And then his question was, had my C8A3 clone BCM upper Centurion lower and BCG at range today. It lasted half an hour of 5.5 hour session before it took off and yeeted over the berm, replaced it with a Radiant Ambi. How did the Canadians tolerate that awful thing? Is it still in service? Did they lapse into sanity and replace it?
Which model?
C8A3 clone.
Well, the C83 has been awesome. Their entire C7 series has been awesome. They've only replaced them with the IUR with the one piece upper receiver, but you're still seeing traditionally you're seeing the C8 A3, you're seeing the SFW, you're seeing the C7 A3 in use. Um, I don't know what problems you're having. Again, yours is not a true Canadian, so I don't
He
know.
said charging handle.
Yeah, the Canadian charging handles, I've never seen any issues. The charging handles that the Canadians use are the standard mil spec, but the current one, the C7A3, uses an ambi latch. Um, but those were all traditional M4 type configurations or M16 type configurations.
Carrie is here. Hey, Carrie.
Aim low.
Richard on DonorBox, thank you so much, Richard. I have an LMT Mars H 6.5 cm DMR with a spare 13.5-inch 308 barrel P and W. It was having failure to feed using Surefire 300 SPS suppressor. This happened occasionally with the long Creedmoor bullets as well. At the advice of the forum members, I installed a slash XH heavy buffer, Tubbs flat spring, JP gas rings, and BRT 0.073-inch gas tube. It seems to run well, but do you think reliability will be affected in adverse conditions? I assume LMT uses very large gas ports. Also, primers were flattening out slightly, but I think that's normal suppressed.
Yeah, it is. Once you start suppressing that, you're running this thing extremely fast. The heavier buffer will help you. The rest of that crap, I don't. I don't think too much of. The heavier buffer may. You may want to get yourself a new type of a suppressor. The LMT ion suppressor has zero back pressure. The zero back pressure would take care of that overgassing. So my guess is your real problem is the suppressor that you're using. Um, when you look at the zero back pressure, it drops all that pressure down with the suppressor to normal, so the gun's cycling under normal conditions. Um, you can dry something like that a lot faster. Again, that gun wasn't designed to fire suppressed with a 6.5 Creedmoor, especially with the shorter barrels. My guess is if you went with a no back pressure suppressor, again like the LMT technology I had, which I have, and I see a big difference. Hey Tim, Tim from Mac is here.
Mm,
Great to see you.
thanks for joining us,
Thanks,
Tim.
Tim.
See, even he's happy you're back. Greg wants to know trying to decide on a SHTF battle rifle, Galil Ace 308 or 47. Thoughts or alternative recommendations?
Two different animals. If you like suppressors, both of them are excellent guns for reliability. Speaking of that, even Tim did a video on that where he had thought quite a bit of the Tavor. Um, I have to say I've been trying to get a Tavor 7 for quite some time from IWI to test, and I haven't been able to. I have got a lot of trigger time on the Galil Ace in 308. I do like it. I tend to be more of an AR type person, more of an AR-10 like LMT type than I am. That's it's more of a standard assault rifle, I would say. That you don't have the accuracy and potential that you do with say an LMT with a 16 or an 18-inch barrel. But unfortunately, I can't really give you an opinion on the Tavor because since I haven't had a chance. I did fire one at Shot Show a few years ago. It was fine, but again, I can't tell you much with fully firing about 10 rounds.
I know you guys are so ready for a new video. We will be filming tomorrow, right, Chris?
Oh yeah, I have lots of stuff to do at the range. We're actually going to be doing our first ballistics on some new ammunition. Well, it's not new ammunition, but the Fort Scott the tumble on impact ammunition. We're going to be doing some gel shooting with that. We have lots of stuff. I got a lot of range stuff to do tomorrow. I got a lot of stuff to pick up this week. So yeah, we are busy. We have lots of stuff here.
And it will be a priority to get something out to you as soon as possible. Vincent on donor box, thank you so much. I have an LMT MLK MWS sniper in 308. Would a Geisley Super 42 rifle length spring be correct to use if I wanted to replace the buffer and spring?
I wouldn't replace it. There's no reason to replace that. A lot of these things are gimmicks. That gun's designed to work, and it's been tested by the Estonian military and God, New Zealand, the Brits. The gun's designed to work the way that it is. A lot of these buffer upgrades are gimmicks. The buffer spring is not a part that's under a lot of stress. So even going with the braided recoil springs, again, it's not necessary. There's better places to put your money, I think, than changing out parts that don't have problems.
What are your thoughts on the new SIG XM5 rifle and the 6.8 millimeter round? Is it the wave of the future or a waste of money?
I think it's a big step backwards. I don't know anybody really who said that it's a good thing. You're going back to heavy recoil. You're going back to lower magazine capacity. You're going back to lower control on fully automatic. So you're taking away a lot of your ability to be able to control it in an ambush, which is another reason we got rid of the M14. Um, you have an optic that you got to have a degree to be able to figure out how to use. I think that it'd be for certain missions it would be good, where you're going to have the ability to do the long range shots. But as an overall replacement, I think it's a complete mistake. You have such high pressures. I'd love to see how long those barrels actually last. You also have a dedicated gun to a sound suppressor, which again, sound suppressors is also something that over time wears on the guns. Also puts gas in your face. Um, I think it's a complete. I think it's something that the military got into. They put a lot of money into it. They got a lot of pressure to try to replace the M4, which works. Um, the cost of it is astronomical compared to the M4, and I think a lot of guys once they start using it, they're going to want to go back to their M4s. Again, that's my opinion.
Everyone is very happy to see that SAS is back and going through SAS withdrawals. And Chris, I'm not sure what happened to you, but you look healthy and well rested.
Yeah, as I said, I had a foot issue, and then in the hospital, heart, and ended up with COVID. So I ended up in hospital for a couple weeks, and then with the heart issue and everything, they didn't want me traveling. So I was stuck behind the lines for way too much longer than I would have liked.
Do you think the 3D printed AR-15 lowers may be the future over forgings?
No. The the standard 3D printed they're not durable for as far as I am concerned. I had worked a lot on the one that's made by American Tactical, their Omni, and the first generation they had was all polymer, and when you tried torquing down or putting some pressure on the receiver extension nut, it would snap right off. So we ended up going through all that and adding a metal insert that took care of that. That particular one, I've got thousands and thousands of rounds. It's excellent. It works wonderful. Um, it's not any thicker, or it seems like it's thicker than the original one to get the same strength. Um, I prefer to stay with the aluminum for a military type gun. There's different reasons why you have the 3D printed ones. Those are again for for people building their own guns and so forth. But for as far as replacing, absolutely not. They don't have the strength unless you put those inserts like American Tactical did on the front and in the rear. Uh, Again, my opinion, a lot of the 3D printed stuff, again, I don't think has the durability that the factory stuff does, but it has its different purposes.
You recommended a trigger that is cheaper than Geisley two-stage AR trigger. What is it?
Well, I would take a look at the LMT Axle. The LMT Axle is an excellent trigger. There's one that Centurion Arms puts out right now. It's made by somebody else for them. It's like half the price if you go over to the Centurion website. You'll see it on there. It's a two-stage, which we also have some code for that. That's an excellent one. One of the problems I think that you have, Geisley is probably one of the best ones out there, but many of the OEMs are having a hard time getting a hold of them now, which is forcing them to go look elsewhere. Um, but the LMT axle, being able to put it, the safety on with the hammer forward is really a nice deal. Hoping to get a couple of those in pretty soon to do some testing on. But those were requested by the Estonian military, so there was a reason that LMT did that. And the only two companies that I know currently that are doing that are H&K and LMT, which both had requirements for Europe that were like that.
You were talking about Centurion, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm putting the codes into the chat box for Centurion. We have 3 different codes. You can save 3% off complete rifles, 5% off of uppers and lowers, and 10% off of everything else. So the trigger is what you were talking about, right? So the trigger, you could get 10% off if you use that particular code on Centurion. Um, Save yourself a little bit of money there.
Yeah.
And I just want to let you guys know, since we're here on a date that's not normal, we normally don't do Q&As on Sundays, but Chris just got back last night and I literally said, just let's just get on. So we know, everybody knows we're back and that we're back into the grind. And to let you know that we will be doing another Q&A on Wednesday, the 2nd. So in just 3 days. So all you guys who are watching this later after it's already been filmed and you're like, oh my God, I did not know that they were going to be back. Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Time.
I am trying to get my hands on a Sig Spear right now. Unfortunately, all the ones that Sig has for T&E are out. So I am hoping at some point to be able to get. I am actually really anxious to take a look at one of those. Compared to, again, I'm an MCX fan myself. I have the original MCX. I had the upgrades done too. I don't have the Virtus, but I have the original, and I'm very interested in the new Spear.
William on Donor Box, he just says, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you, William. LaRue, MPT, or RRA Varmint.
Well, I have experience with the Rock River Arms, and those were excellent rifles. I had one of their 224 Valkyries. LaRue, I have no experience with, and that's because LaRue would never send me anything to review. I had made contact with them on a couple occasions to try to get some guns to review, and they said they don't send guns out for review. Obviously, our channel's not. We're not in a position to go out and spend $3,000 to do to buy a gun for a review. So I can't say anything good or bad about them just due to the fact that I don't have any trigger time behind them, and I'm not going to give you an opinion of something that I haven't used. But the Rock River Arms are very high quality rifles. I've never had any issues. I reviewed several of them. I get a lot of flack from certain people because of some political views on them. I'm reviewing the guns, not the politics of the company. We have plenty of people here who do like Rock River Arms. They don't really care about the political aspect. So their guns never did anything to nobody. So I still will review guns regardless of whether the company, what the company's stance is on it. I'm doing one right now on Sons of Liberty, and Sons of Liberty is not a fan of law enforcement. But one of my viewers was kind enough to send me one for review, so we're going to review it and tell you what I think.
Tad says since tomorrow is Halloween, what would Chris use against horror monsters like Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, and Wolfman?
Well, quite frankly, sitting right next to me, I have a custom rifle I had done by Centurion Arms, which I specified to Monty exactly what I wanted. It's an SBR. One of the interesting parts about this rifle is the barrel. Monty asked me a while back what I thought was the ideal barrel for a combat rifle. I told him I would like a 14.5 inch SOCOM barrel with no slots and a mid-length gas system. Monty went and did it. So I have that barrel on here, cold hammer forged chrome line barrel, and I'm very very pleased with it. I also have my LMT MLK with a 14.5 inch internal piston barrel on it, which I have as well, and also I have a Colt LE 6944, which I have as well. So those are pretty much my three go-to rifles.
Tim from Military Arms Channel says it's rather short-sighted to adopt a whole new rifle for the claimed purpose of defeating body armor. Our enemies will easily create new armor that defeats the 6.8 by 51. Then what?
Absolutely. We're looking at they want a one weapon solution. And when you go from fighting in Baghdad to fighting in the mountains of Afghanistan, you're looking at two totally different types of warfare. When you're in an urban environment or even a wooded environment, the 5.56 is an excellent option. Now, are there better options? 6.8 SBC, I think, would be an excellent alternative to it. But when you start looking at a rifle with the range that the the M5 is supposed to have, that only benefits you in long range environments like the mountains of Afghanistan or way out in the desert. I think it's a detriment to. I mean, I haven't had a chance to fire one yet, but I could not imagine how deafening that thing would be without a suppressor on it. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to get my hands on one yet, but from what I also understand, that suppressor is integral to making the gun work. Um, a lot of times when you're in the ambush situation is what keeps coming to mind. The only way to get out of an ambush is put on a heavier volume of fire and more accurate than the enemies. Well, you're taking that away with having a gun that kicks like that, has that kind of recoil, and you have a lower magazine capacity. The entire concept is the exact reason we got rid of the M14, why the M14 never came back, or any other quote battle rifle came back to for regular use in the U.S. military. There was unfortunately talk about going to the 6.8 SPC, but it never came to fruition. I think a lot of it had to do with timing and the fact that it was pushed on them when there wasn't a requirement for it. Quite frankly, I'm shocked that the military hasn't taken a more serious look at it. You know, I think the SIG MCX or an LWRCI 68 SPC would have been an excellent alternative to the M4. Giving you that extra power that you needed, but you're not taking away from all the benefits of having an assault rifle. But again, I think this was politics. I see this going the same way the AN-94 did. The Russians adopted the AN-94, and then they found out later on down this was not a practical rifle, and then only Spetsnaz pretty much used it, and the AK-74 went on.
A couple of the guys, more than a couple, they're actually thinking exactly. I was thinking the exact same thing. They're surprised that you didn't pick the Bigfoot gun to kill monsters. Not that it
Again,
matters,
you
but
need rapid shots. You have multiple targets.
I love that
That's
we're
not.
really breaking this down and
It's
thinking
just
about it
not. It's just not a practical gun to use.
for
Yeah,
monsters.
and again, you look at most of those kind of monsters. You're looking at normal weights and everything. You're not looking at
Normal
well, not
weights, because
Bigfoot like you'd have.
monsters are normal weight, because we
Yeah,
have things to go
yeah.
off of.
Bigfoot is you're looking
All
at a
right.
much thicker bone mass and all
Oh
that.
my
It's a
God.
whole different ball game.
Oh, so you don't want to blow the monster up.
Well, as I said, you have to carry the thing too and be able to shoot.
Ah. Have you seen the new SIG MCX Spear LT?
I have seen them, but not in my hands. I'm very impressed with what I've seen. Again, as soon as it came out, I called my contact over at SIG to have him see if he could send me one. And he said he had none at that time. So hopefully at some point he's going to be able to get one over to me. Something tells me that one won't go back when I do get my hands on one. Because again, I am an MCX fan, but it's probably gonna be a while before I can get my hands on one.
This guy says, "I thought you were captured and tortured by Colt for the pathetic pony video."
Mm,
Yeah, he's being held.
yeah,
Um,
they actually like the videos I put out on the Sig. I'm sorry, the Python 2020 though. The Python 2020, I've given a lot of good press to it. I'm very happy with it.
I've been running a rifle buffer in A1 stock on my 16-inch MIDI smooth and no problems so far. Is there any long-term issues that I should know about?
No, be just fine.
Thoughts on the Springfield SOCOM 16?
Again, you're talking to a guy who's not an M14 fan. I would rather take an LMT 308 with their 13-inch barrel, which is going to be more accurate, more reliable, easier to use, better magazines, um, easier to manipulate, less recoil, better on fully automatic. Uh, you know, yeah, no, that wouldn't be for me at all for any number of reasons.
Michael says, let's focus on the real question that needs to be answered. Thumbs up or down the prequel Game of Thrones?
I have not seen it, to be honest with you,
I have.
so she's going to have to answer that one.
It's good. I mean, it's good, but it's like not great. The finale was not, you know.
Yeah, in my isolation, I've been basically rewatching The Sopranos seasons 1 through 8 myself.
Mm. Sorry, I lost my spot. It's been a while since I've done this. Oh, will you? I mean, Tim's in here too. Will you ever see a military arms channel and SAS collaboration video? I mean, never
Yeah,
say never.
we and Tim have talked about it.
I
Again,
mean,
he's
COVID got in the way too. I think there was a
yeah,
lot more conversation like right as COVID was about to
he's
happen.
been in Indiana and I'm in Texas, so it's just a matter of logistics. We even talked about some kind of stuff that we'd love to do. So, hopefully at some point. Well, in fact, also down here is also Misha, is William. I'd love to see the three of us get together and do some live things or some Q&As or some videos because you got three awesome different awesome video views on a lot of
Different
things.
perspectives
Yeah,
that you could come together at one round table. It would be interesting because Tim's definitely more into the political side of stuff, and he definitely has, a good voice and opinion when it comes to 2A and politics. And then you have Chris, who's like the technical, like historical for cult, and then you have Michiko, who just like is a
yeah.
whole wealth of
Well,
like
yeah.
libraries,
Again,
like
William is probably one of the most knowledgeable people. There's two people that I go to when I need information. One is there's a guy named John who's out of Ohio, who's he's one of the guys who actually built all the Mark 12s for SOCOM during the early days of the global war on terror. That guy to me knows more than anybody I know. And then there's William. Those are the two top guys that I know for as far as absolute incredible knowledge on a number of things. I have a specific area that I'm in is military small arms post World War II. But these guys here, they can go back to cap and balls, and they know that stuff. So I'd love to see all of us, all three of us get together because again, it's a close area down here.
is the MRO bad? Been hearing it is bad lately.
I have one, and I have no issues with it. Um, again, no matter who you are, you can put out bad product. So you can literally have the best gun company in the world who's going to put out a Friday morning or a Friday night or a Monday morning gun, and it's going to have problems. So I take a lot of the criticisms with a grain of salt that there are reasons for it sometimes.
Yes, Scott, you are correct. Michiko is number one when it comes to AKs.
Oh yeah,
You have questions on AKs, you definitely go to him.
AKs, Swiss guns.
Did we do thoughts on Springfield SOCOM 16?
Yes,
Okay. I need to retrain myself on running a Q&A. Trigicon, is it overrated for other optics on the market today?
Trigicon is still very valid. It is literally bomb proof. Um, I had seen someone else over in Afghanistan that went through IEDs, and the damn things were still intact. where you see a lot of the other optics that weren't. You're looking at a scope that's made out of the same material as the rifle's receivers. Um, you're adding fiber optics to it. Still a very, very viable optic. It's expensive, but they make one for any purpose LPVOs or standard the 4 powers, um, fiber optics, tritium. They make them for batteries as well. I mean, they're excellent optics, just relatively expensive, and they're still very, very relevant in my opinion.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of the P30L versus the USP9? Also, will you do a video on the P30L versus the USP9?
I did a video on each of those. I've never done one together. I do have a USP9. I don't have the 30L. That one was a loaner from H&K. I'll just tell you, I'm more of a USP fan. I like the USP better because of the recoil reduction mechanism that's in it. I think it's a more durable gun than the original one. I will say the 30L has a slightly better feel to it, the way that it has the the feel of the frame. But I tend to be a USP fan. I mean that USP9, you can fire submachine gun ammunition and plus B plus ammunition all day long. You're never going to hurt it. The one that I have actually is one of the real early ones. I bought one of the original ones when they came out, when it still had the standard cut rifle barrel, and when they came out with the hammer forged polygon barrel, out of a lot of pissed off customers telling them that they wanted it, I traded my original one in for one with the new hammer forged barrel, which is the same one I have today. So I probably had that gun since 1996, and thousands of rounds through it, and it's just a beast. I think mechanically, the recoil reduction mechanism on the USP is better than what's on the 30L, for as far as durability is concerned. But ergonomics, I probably have to throw that over to the 30L. But for me, I think I stick with the USBs. I got a USB 9, a USB 40, and a USB 45 tactical, and of course I got the Cruiser Mark 23. Probably the most impractical gun the U.S. military ever looked at. Um, but those guns are all very closely related.
Matthew on Donor Box. Thank you, Matthew. You didn't put your question in there. If you forgot to add it, sometimes that happens. Just send me an email at hbartacci@smallarmsolutions.com separately, and I'll know, and just, let me know and I'll pull it immediately. But otherwise, thank you. Anyone going to Stoner's 100th birthday celebration in Titusville? I know Adnan is.
Yeah,
He emailed about it.
I heard about it. As I said, it's I don't I'm it's not something I can really get down to. I would like to, but I don't think I'd be able to.
Oh, what are they doing? Is there?
They're having just a get together. You go through all of his designs, and I'm sure Reed will have some talks about knowing him and things like that. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but it's I think you have to pay a certain amount to get into it.
Oh, wow. Jim says, Heather, do you need some wine? Absolutely, Jim, because Heather's going to be in her office for 20 hours a day in the next coming couple of weeks in order to get you guys videos out, because it's long overdue. And I'm excited for it too. I'm excited to get some content up and get back to some normal. Do you think the SIG M1718 will be able to hold up against the beating the armed forces will give it, especially the polymer, if the military was too cheap to buy proper M9 mags?
Here's the interesting thing about it: they never did the testing against the M9. If you look at the testing the M9 has gone through over the years, 35,000 rounds, and they've had incredible. Their mean rounds between failures is just almost nil. Um, they never competed that gun against the one that it replaced. Not to mention, they never competed against the Glock. So nobody really knows what the durability is going to be over a long period of time. And that's sort of a problem. You would think that you would want your immediate requirements to meet or exceed what your current your pistol has. I'm a Beretta fan. As I said, I've always been. The durability of the 92 series is legendary. Um, it's just the P320 has had its growing pains, and it's now gotten to be a pretty good gun. And again, I blame that for the process of the XM 17 program. that they didn't do it right. The problems that they would have seen before they adopted it, and would have been able to decide whether, okay, these shortcomings are a showstopper or we can take care of them during the normal course of development. So it was the process that wasn't done right. Only time is going to tell how the pistol's going to do compared to the original, to the actual M9. I'd be very curious to see, the two of them go head to head.
Sean says, my sister-in-law just opened a winery in Northern Virginia. First of all, can I be friends with your sister-in-law? Where do I call her and meet up with her? God, why can't I have friends that own a winery? He said he was going to send me some, but he didn't know anything about wine or what I like. I like red and I like dry. So whatever you want to send me, Sean, that would be amazing. But yeah, why can't I have family or friends that own wineries? I don't know. That might be bad though. Can you imagine me in a winery,
Mhm.
like running it?
You probably wouldn't remember too much about it.
Probably not. Um, okay, that's not one you're gonna answer. When you start to get into politics, Chris isn't really gonna give you too much of an opinion on that. Whatever happened to the 6.8 SPC?
Well, it was if you go to back to the development of it, it was developed by a gentleman at Fifth Special Forces who was able to convince a lot of people to dump a lot of money into a program that there was never a requirement for. And unfortunately, the way that the 6.8 SBC was introduced, it had a lot of negative aspects of it because it was something that was not there was no request for it. It died a relatively quick death for as far as U.S. military looking at it. Um, and then it went on to it had a very big following for as far as commercial, and it went on. Remington lost a shit ton of money on it because Remington put a lot of money into development of the cartridge when they thought it was a for sure in with the U.S. military. So they did a lot of you know commercial to try to make up for some of that money. You also the differences between the spec one and the spec two chamber. Again, the spec one chamber was when everybody was building rifles before the cartridge was even finalized. And then when we had a proper, what the 6.8 SBC was supposed to be was the Spec 2, everybody was afraid to make ammunition for it because it would cause problems in the Spec 1 chamber. So you had companies that were making Spec 2 chambers, but the companies, because of the fact that the Spec 2 had no SAMI spec to it, everybody was building ammunition based off of the Spec 1, which was again a lighter load than the Spec 2. So I think because of the lack of interest in the U.S. military. I think the premature release of the ammunition and the guns, where we had two different specifications, uh, especially when one wasn't, when the later wasn't compatible with the original. Um, I think that was part of it. And of course, with the 6.5 Grendel that came out, again, I'm a fan of the 6.8 SPC over the Grendel just due to reliability in the system. We did some work with a company. There was a customer in the Scandinavia who was looking at the 6.5 Grendel as an assault rifle. When we did the testing on it, the thing did not do very well in full auto. Just the way the magazines fed and the way that the cartridge shape and everything, it wasn't conducive. Where the 6.8 SPC was, the 6 point SPC did work fine on full auto. Um, with the newer magazines, for instance, the LWRC magazines made a major difference in reliability. It made a magazine that it was supposed to be. Um, but it's still got it's people who love it. It's used here in Texas for hunting hogs like crazy. It did have a foreign military sale to an Arab customer. Again, since I worked on that program, I can't tell you who it is. Most of you guys all know it, but I can't say it because I'm under NDA. It was the first foreign sale of a 68 SPC to a foreign military in large quantities. Um, a good cartridge just was the way that it was introduced and everything. I think that was most of the problem.
Will Gen 3 locking block work in a Beretta 92 FS that was manufactured back in 1998? I watched your video on the 92 M9 and I have the original locking block and I want to get the more durable Gen 3.
Yes, the difference is the plunger pin that you have on there is a shorter, is a lower diameter. It's more narrow, but that will work in your gun fine. You have to replace those two parts together, the locking block and the plunger. You have to make sure that you have the two that are compatible. is part of the strength of the Gen 2 and the Gen 3. Well, Gen 3 was the plunger was narrower, so you had more material in there, so it was stronger. So again, you got to make sure you have both those parts.
If you lost all your rifles today, but could buy anyone to engage in combat tomorrow, what would you buy? LMT? What caliber? And he says, "Thank you. Your channel's a jewel."
It would be it'll probably be the LMT MLK in 5.56 because again, my ammunition choice is Mark 262 77 grain OTM. Again, I do like the 6.8 SPC. For me, I would rather see a 6.8 SPC in a gun that it was designed around, such as the like the WRCI, or even some of the even the MCX or the Robinson Armaments XCR or sorry, XCR, another great one in 6.8 SPC.
I would like to see Chris do a definitive deep dive into Glock 17 generations, molding comparison, not just the pebbling and finger grooves, more along where they beefed up from Gen 1 to Gen 2.
I have a whole video on Glock. It's called Glock Generations, where I go from Gen 1 to Gen 5, I believe, where I go over all those and I go over all the changes in there. I mean, for as far as
I think there's even a
manufacturing,
blog post about it
yeah, for
too.
as far as the manufacturing end of it with molds and things like that, obviously I don't get really into that because I can look at it and tell you how I think everything is made. But again, Glock doesn't invite people into their. I actually have been in their factory here in the U.S. and they don't allow people in there to film or anything like that. But I have seen it. But I did a pretty good go through of Gens 1 through Gen 5 in that video, Glock Generations. You also could take a look at the video I did on the 17M as well. The 17M was the transition from the Gen 4 to the Gen 5, which gives you some more really good detail.
There may be a playlist too on the channel where there's some Glock videos. If not, that's something that I probably should do is go organize some of those videos so that you can find them a little bit easier. But there is a search bar if you go into someone's channel that where you can search within their videos and not just all of YouTube. So maybe go type in Glock and see if those videos pop up. I'm about to pull the trigger on a couple of BCM uppers. Is it worth the extra $100 to go with cold hammer forged barrel or standard? Both are chrome lined.
I would go with the cold hammer forge because you just get that additional benefit to it. Um, again, we talk about this all the time. We talk about the military reasoning for not allowing cold hammer forged barrels on their M16s and M4s, and they claim it was the accuracy issue. Again, you're not going to be able to make the same leading edge with a cold hammer forge that you are with a button cut. So your accuracy will be slightly better with the standard, but the cold hammer forge will last you longer. It's a more durable barrel. Um, for me, for my money and my choice, I would go with the cold hammer forged and chrome lining again.
I would like to get a G36 from Tommy Built. Will his rifle stand up to a lot of shooting? I'm worried since the lower receiver is made of polymer.
Well, that's what it is. I did a video on the G36 where that was a Tommy built that I used, and it was excellent. Those parts are just as good, I think, as H&Ks. Um, what you're going to get from him is going to be an accurate representation of I think the German G36. I mean, of course, it's not going to be exact, but it's the best that you're going to be able to get here in the U.S. Um, I'm not a G36 fan, and I never really have been. But for as far as if you want one, that's the only place you're going to get one. And I think he does a really good job, but it's expensive.
Would converting from direct impingement to piston systems on LR308 increase reliability? If so, what are some cons to the system?
I'm not an external piston fan on an AR. It wasn't designed for it. And I've said that many times over and over again. If you go back to where it came out with H&K with the introduction of that time HKM4, later HK416. Um, these companies knew there was no way they were going to get into the U.S. military because the Colt had the sole source on the M4. The only way they were going to do it was to say that the M4 was deficient and try to get people to go that route with it. And that's where you started seeing the external pistons, come up. Um, the way that the AR-15 platform is designed, it's designed to work with the internal piston inline construction, and it works well. There's no issues with it. I don't think you gain anything really going external piston. Where those guns are going to fail is going to be at the same point with the heat of the barrel. One system is not more reliable than the other. Um, we've done some extensive testing at Colt. My God, I mean, you can see some of the destruction testing that you did where you're going through, in some cases, nearly 900 rounds before the gun fails. And it doesn't fail because of the operating system. It fails because of the barrel hit transformation. Um, I don't think it would be wise at all to switch to an external piston system on an AR type rifle. If you want an external piston, buy a gun that was designed like that. Buy an XCR, buy a Scar. Buy something that was designed that way.
And here's a question you'll love. Want to read that one out?
Who in the
Who'd win in a cage match? Johnny Lawrence or Chosen?
Chosen?
Is it Chosen?
Chosen.
Is it
Chosen
Z?
is Chosen is just you're just looking at somebody who has old school karate.
Oh my
Who is a
God, we're like
master.
seriously gonna break this down.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's much of a question.
Because this is why y'all are here tonight. Y'all really want to know that. I don't even know who this is. Is this from the new season?
Yeah, season 5.
Is this a new character or is this?
No, he was in Karate Kid 2, the
Oh
original.
my God, the original.
No, there's no question it would be Chosen.
Which one is that?
He was the guy in Karate Kid 2 who tried to kill Daniel Russo. They had the two. The two went to a match to the death, but he didn't kill him. And then Chosen had this whole thing with honor and everything, and he was able to come back.
Oh my God. You knew exactly what to ask him. This man he's obsessed with two things in life: guns and Karate Kid.
I love Cobra Kai, absolutely.
Do you think that LMT will do some more with 7.62 by 39 with SIG releasing the Spear LT?
I've had this conversation with Carl on many, many occasions. The guy who he's got in charge of it, who's in charge of a lot of these kind of things, Joe Haney, is not a fan of putting the 7.62 by 39 in the LMT platform. I respectfully disagreed with him on that. I believe that there would be a heavy demand for it. When they did make some spare barrels, they flew out like crazy. Were sold on Gunbroker for astronomical amounts. The biggest problem has been solved. I'm sure Tim can attest with the SIG Spear that he had with the magazines that he used, and those were C Products Defense magazines, which SIG worked very closely with with them to make a magazine that works well in the AR platform. So now that you have a proper magazine, they make a proper bolt, and they have a barrel. There's no reason. I think it's crazy that they don't do it. But LMT's having a hard time putting out what their regular products are right now, let alone new products. Again, I've talked to Carl about it. In fact, I did a little bit of consulting work for him on what it would take to get everything to work properly. I'd love to see it. I just don't know if we will.
Yes, Miles. He's a huge Cobra Kai fan. He's fanatical about it. Well, you haven't been on a Q&A for a while, but he's occasionally wears Cobra Kai merch. And I've posted some photos of him on Instagram and social media, Facebook and all of that, where it's premiere day, and he waits at 3 a.m. when it comes out, and then just stays up.
Season 5 started at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was up until
He was
9.
Yeah, but you were in New York
Yeah.
because normally it would be 3 o'clock Texas time, so he was in New York, so he got to start it a whole hour before.
Yep.
And then he'll just go to bed when it's done. So if it came out like Christmas morning, he would stay up all night and be like, "Hey, sorry,
And I did.
sleeping through because I need to watch Cobra Kai."
So I did.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of questions about the MCX Spear.
Yeah, as I said, I'm dying to get my hands on one. Tim put out a really good video on both that and the 7.62 by 39. So he's got he's got firsthand knowledge and firsthand trigger time on it. I'm still waiting to get my hands on one.
Okay, guys. Well, I think we got through most of all the questions that you submitted. If you have questions outside of the chat, all we ask is you make a donation to the channel in any amount. The Q&A will be Wednesday, November 2nd. So you do not have long to go if you are just now joining in and like, oh my God, they're back. we are ready to put some stuff out for you guys. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in, Tim. I appreciate you coming in.
And of course, you too, Carrie. What would a
Absolutely.
Q&A be
Aim
without
low.
Carrie and Sean? Good night, guys.